What up, what up, what up? It's your boy Roy, accompanied by the one, the only, the Dominican Badman Surge, aka the Floor Price Guy, and we're back with another UFC post-fight reaction and opinion. We had a banger of a card, Royval versus Taira. How you doing, man, before we get into these fights?
Brother, it is always a pleasure to do these prediction videos, post fight analysis. I am great. What an exciting card. The boys were fighting in the back, but these two gentlemen delivered, champ.
Yeah, it was an exciting main event. And, before we get into the card and break down these fights, make sure you like, make sure you subscribe, make sure you comment, make sure you follow us on X. The link is in the description. Show some love. We are steadily growing that account. We are up to 260 followers. Last time we did a video, we were at 150. We're growing. We're almost there. Not quite, but almost. So show some love. Don't be stingy. I always say every week, do not be stingy. Now, when it comes to our picks, for the first time on our show, Floor Price Guy, we're even. Look at us. A 73% success rate on our picks. Our bets weren't bad either. We made away with some money, right? We made away with some money. We got the bag.
What I say? Tell them to bring me my money. Yeah!
We'll get into all that. Let's break down this card. Kicking off the night, we had the performance of the night. Clayton Carpenter, who was the favorite, up against Lucas Rocha. Now, we both went for the favorite in this fight, and seeing how it played out, we were correct, and rightfully so. We picked the right guy. I mean, he looked good, right? You look at the boxing, he looked crisp. He got the takedowns. He one of the things that stood out to me in this fight is the size difference. I think we spoke about it, right? He looked overwhelmingly bigger than Lucas, right? Lucas looks like he's a class higher than what he should be, but flyweight's the lowest in the UFC. So, what did you think?
I think this was a phenomenal, even for both fighters, right? Rocha got the L via submission, but I got to say, Carpenter, man, oof, great featherweight prospect. Sorry, great flyweight prospect. Rocha came out, man. One of the things to kind of highlight here is that Rocha is the UFC fighters with the smallest reach. Like, and what that means, champ, is like there should, if there was a division prior, like lower than flyweight, you would get to see kind of Rocha there. Like you said, the Carpenter looked massive. Carpenter looked good in all angles. Rocha did put it on him, but it was just too much. The takedown was always there. Carpenter sliced him up on the ground, made him bleed a little bit, and then in the second one, enough is enough. Took him down and just submitted him.
Yeah, and then looking at the stats here, he pretty much doubled in everything, right? He hit more significant strikes, 34 in comparison to 17. He hit two of his three takedown attempts. And, his first submission attempt that he went was successful, and he ended up pulling out the victory rear naked choke. So, yeah, he looked good. We'll see what the future has for Clayton Carpenter. Next up, we had a bantamweight bout. Cody Haddon, who was the favorite at a minus 180 up against Dan Argueta, who was the underdog at plus 150. Now, if you remember our pre-fight analysis, one of the things that I stated was, Argueta has the UFC experience and he has the grappling advantage up against Haddon. And one of the concerns I had was, is he going to be able to stuff the takedown? Is he going to be able to withstand the pressure and the forward movement of Argueta? And he did. I think he attempted 24 takedowns in this fight. It was only successful 4 times. Haddon looked really good, preventing him from bringing the fight to the ground. I think, I was impressed with Haddon's performance. I did not expect him to look that good in the takedown defense. And, Argueta, the first round, you could tell he pushed the pace, and we kind of expected him to slowly, wither away as the fight progressed, and he looked extremely tired going into the third round and second round. So, it hadn't impressed me. I was incorrect. I had chosen Argueta based on his wrestling prowess, but Haddon got it out the unanimous decision win. What did you think of Haddon, his performance in the fight overall?
I saw him at the Contender Series, and that kid just looked amazing. And this fight was very interesting, right? And
Mhm.
Argueta came in strong. And I gotta say, man, I think one of the big, because he's a Team Jackson guy too, if I'm not mistaken. Team Jackson. One of the biggest things that Argetta did, in my opinion, he went too hard too quickly. He expended too much energy off the first round, but those two were at it. But the thing is, hadn't had the significant strike advantage, and Argetta just wanted to kind of wrestle. He didn't want to really mix it up. Haddon did. Haddon was going for everything.
Mm-hmm.
So shout out to Haddon for the win. Who does he fight next? We'll see. But it was interesting because towards the end of the round, like first round, after the first round, the odds were minus 550 Haddon. Argetta was a plus 350. And then the fight is competitive, but Haddon is getting that edge, especially when the striking. And he was mixing it up a little bit as well. After the second round, minus 800, Argetta 475. And by the end, it was just so blatantly like that he won it. He was a minus 6,000 Haddon. So shout out to Haddon. I would like to see Argetta kind of mix it up, his striking a little bit more. He has phenomenal striking and phenomenal power and strength, but he needs to get better at the striking departments. You can't rush these guys. You got to mix it up.
Yeah, I agree. And I understand that these fight cards, for the people watching and the people that follow us, they are at different times, right? Like everyone lives in a different time zone. People might not be able to watch the fight. So one of the things that we do and that we provide via our X account is we provide live updates of the fight and then post fight updates. So when the fight is finished, we provide a round by round analysis, and the odds shift as the fight progresses. So I'll share a sample here of our X account. Scroll up to the top. So you see here for the next. Can you go to the previous fight?
Oh, the one we just had for Haddon?
Yeah, we just did. So the Cody Haddon versus Dan Argetta, you see how we have the round one analysis, the odds shifts, ending that round, the round two, the round three, and then the outcome. So some people aren't always able to watch the fights live, so they kind of tune into our Twitter account, they read our analysis, and they kind of appreciate that. So give us a follow if you like this sort of thing, comment, retweet. Don't be stingy, as we always say. Moving on here. Next fight, we have Corey McKenna up against Julia Polastri. Now, this fight was when we did the pre-fight analysis, Corey McKenna was the underdog, right? And as the fight neared, the odds were even. Something happened, right? People put money on McKenna. It was even odds at the start of the fight. And I think, to put it plain and simple, Corey McKenna didn't make this her fight. She wasn't able to get the takedown. She wasn't able to bring her down to the ground. If you look at the third round, that was her game plan that she was trying to incorporate throughout the whole fight, is take her down to the ground and control her. But I think she did it too late. She figured it out too late, and she just got outstriked. The volume and the pressure from Polastri was too much. And Polastri looks good. She's big. She has a nice frame. She throws good strikes. That's pretty much how I'll leave him. Corey McKenna couldn't make this her fight. She got outclassed. She got outstriked, and that's that.
And champ, listen, this was a split decision win by Julia Polastri. Split decision, champ. Going into the third, after 30 seconds in, I always like to kind of check the odds. Polastri was a minus 50,000.
Yeah,
which is insane. It is what it is. At the end of the day, Alpha Male was the coach behind McKenna. McKenna wasn't listening to their coaches. McKenna just wanted to box. That's really what all I saw was boxing, where Polastri was switching it up. So there was a significant jab cross McKenna, but it was just the power of Polastri, the switch of the knees, the clinch. It was nasty, champ. And then, like you said, at the end, it's like she took her down, but her coaches wanted her to box, box her up. Don't let her put you on the cage. And McKenna wanted to prove something by taking her down. But the thing is, you're already down two rounds. You got to finish her. So. I just hope next time she listens a little bit more to her coaches, switches it up a little bit more. She had a very good job cross, champ, but this is not boxing. We had Better Be and Bivol that night. So I hope she comes better, listen to her coaches, and shout out to Polastri. Great power.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, you got to highlight your strengths, right? And one of her strengths was, against this matchup was utilizing the ground game, and she didn't utilize it. It was too little, too late. Moving on here, we have some big boys. Big boys. Junior Tafa versus Sean Sheriff. Now, when we initially did our pre-fight analysis, we did it under the notion that it was Junior Tafa up against what's my guy's name? Chris Barnett, right? Chris Barnett pulled out due to the issues with Hurricane Milton. I hope that he's well and that everything's okay with him. And filling in for him was Sean Sheriff on a 2-day notice, I believe, 2 or 3 days. This fight was pretty much what you'd expect, right? Two guys slugging it out, very little ground game. One of the things that was interesting was that it did get to the second round, and towards the end of the first, I believe Sean Sheriff had top mount, right? Like he had him in a vulnerable position. And if you watch Junior Tafa's fight and you know his weakness, and we covered this in our pre-fight analysis, he has no ground game. He has no ground defense. You get that man on the ground, you're pretty sure to win if you have the cardio and the will to just overcome whatever's left throughout the time. But Sean Sheriff didn't. The round ended. Come second round, the onslaught was there. And they had a weird moment where they stared at each other for like 45 seconds because they were so gassed. Did you see that? They were just staring at each other like, oh, what are we doing here, brother? What are we doing here? And then soon enough, he just, Junior Tafa just KO'd him.
Brother, listen, I remember my first match boxing, and I put a whooping on this guy. And on the third round, I'm tired, brother. I've never been through that intensity. This was like a decade and a half ago. So I tell myself, if anything this guy hits me with, I'm probably going down. I did not do that, but that's what it felt like. And shout out to Tafa, he got it done. That man killed him in the first round. Tafa survived miraculously. I have to say, the referee gave him the benefit of the doubt because there was one point he was just covering, and it was like 30 seconds remaining, and it was just, if the ref would have stopped it, nobody really would have complained. Let's be honest with each other. Going into the second, the other man was tired. Short notice fight. How many days? 5 days. That's why we don't have that card we don't have that fight in these picks. I picked Barnett. He got it done, but champ, I don't know what Tafa's gonna do, but that conditioning. I mean, he's a one round fighter.
Next up, we had a welterweight bout. Themba Gorimbo pulling out the unanimous decision win up against Nico Price. We had both picked Gorimbo to win this fight. I think he looked good. He mixed up the strikes. He outlanded Nico Price. He took him down 7 of 9 times. He looked really good. But what did you think?
I think, yeah. I mean, look, I said it. I said it in the post analysis. Sorry, in the analysis at the beginning. Price is a different fighter. He's not that fighter. He was very hesitant. Typically, it was the Gorimbo show. The power was there. The takedowns were there. There was even a moment where he almost kind of like, he felt like he was going to gas out, but he kept the pace. Yeah. And every time that guy would hit you, it's like, God damn, your ancestors felt it. It was insane. I do think he needs a little bit more work when it comes to his gas tank, to be, again, undeniable. But he did great, champ. I mean, when it comes to Nico Price, we knew going into this, Nico Price and Alex Morono were a little bit sus, just based on they've been in the UFC for 6+ years.
Yeah.
Right? And we've seen him decay in their fights. And Gorimbo's on the up.
Next up, we had a featherweight bout. Jonathan Pierce, who was the favorite at what was he favorite at? He was the favorite at a -180 up against Pat Sabatini, the underdog, at a +150. Now, in our pre-fight analysis, we stated that this is a grappler's delight, right? And with Pierce having the edge when it comes to striking. And one of the things I said, if you remember, was Sabatini cannot let this fight be on its feet. He has to immediately take him down. He will get a takedown, and if he does, his Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is way better than Jonathan Pierce's. And sure enough, he took him down and he got the submission win. What did you think?
Well, I had Pierce winning, right? And It was just based on more. He tends to switch it up. But again, now he's in the UFC. The caliber of fighting, we're seeing it there, right? One of the greatest things that Sabatini was able to do, he, right away, it comes into the center, engages in the clinch, but Sabatini immediately goes for the back. And champ, it hasn't even been 30 seconds, and that man's already on that man's back. And listen, when you get a man dry like that, it's kind of an issue. And he didn't hesitate. He did the backpack, and he got the submission. Shout out to him. Secured it. Looked very strong as well. With Pierce, yeah, I would have loved to see a little bit more urgency when it comes to defending. There was a lot of. He should have mixed it up, but again, it is what it is. It was just too quick, champ. But on the first exchange, it was a wrap. Let's be honest.
And one of the things that the broadcast stated that I liked was, Pat Sabatini took the time to speak to a sport psychologist, I believe, in between fights, and kind of to help him get his mind right for his next fight, especially when you're coming off of losses. So he said that he's in the right mind place and he has the right mindset. So I'm interested to see who they give him next and where he goes from here in the flyweight division and the featherweight division. I'm sorry.
And we speak of that very often, right? Like certain fighters, depending on where they're at in their careers, they should see a sports psychologist. I mean, for fuck's sake, it's a sports psychologist. It's not. And again, look at the effects. The killer came out. It wasn't a feeler. He knew immediately, brother, I got to get your back. And that's what he did. And shout out to him. He did what he needed to get done.
Next up, finishing off our prelims is CJ Vergara, who was the underdog at a plus 275 up against Ramazan Tamarov, the heavy favorite at a minus 345. My man was making his UFC debut all the way from Uzbekistan. One of the things I said in our pre-fight analysis is this guy's striking. He's fast. If you see him strike, he is fast. He puts nice combos together, and he throws with high volume, and he pushes the pace. And this fight won performance of the night. 1 second. Yes, won performance of the night. And looking at the stats here in the first round, he landed 23 significant strikes in the first 2.5 minutes. And he had Vergara stunned, and he had him running. He had him on the back pedal. And you know how it is when you get hit, right? Like you're seeing stars, man, and you're trying to come to, right? Your vision's blurry. And he was just trying to get his equilibrium right, but he just chased him. He chased it, he hunted him down, and he pulled out the KO win. What did you think about his first performance, his debut performance in the UFC?
Yeah, I mean, listen, it was spectacular. The guy came in and he did quick work. And, the first and foremost, the discrepancy between both fighters was very significant. Vergara was massive. But this guy just has, again, like the touch. He touches you. He felt it. And
You said Vergara was massive or Tamarov?
I think Vergara was a massive one. Vergara looked massive in comparison. I'll go and reevaluate, but it was very noticeable because I remember it's like I looked into that fight. I looked at the odds. I know what I was picking, but when those guys fully hydrate and you see them, you're like, whoa. What? It's similar with Chidi versus Guden. We'll talk about that. But champ, I didn't like that, he hit him hard, but Vergara goes back into that very similar. He starts running in the ring. And I get it, you're hurt, but there needs to be another alternative to that. There needs to be, what's going on with your defense, with I don't know, man. This is not a good look for Vergara. Shout out to this up and comer, got the work done. It was spinning kick, looping hooks, overhand rights, knocking him down, putting pressure. Again, performance of the night. Shout out to him. The odds were a minus 345 for Tamarov, and he got it done, champ.
He did. Opening up the main card, we had a welterweight bout. Daniel Rodriguez from Alhambra, who was the favorite at a minus 205 up against Alex Morono, who's the underdog at a plus 170. Rodriguez won via split decision. Now, my issue with this fight isn't the fight itself. You know what my issue is, floor price guy?
What?
I don't get why Alex Morono comes out with his black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu across his neck, showing it off, and in the fight, he doesn't utilize a lick of his Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Can you make that make sense?
I can't. I can't.
What's going on through my man's mind? He's known for his jiu-jitsu. Why doesn't he use it? Going up against a boxer.
Because he was hot, champ. That first round, my man looked unstoppable. But what do we talk about the gas tank, champ? That guy, listen, my man got a little bit overconfident, and he was throwing. And he, it was a split decision win by Daniel. But it comes down to, like, what's the point of throwing all these punches when you're not really landing?
Yeah.
You feel me? It's like very leaning overhand rights. He didn't, like, he should have used his jits. His jits was there to use him. Yeah, 126 landed by Rodriguez. Morono landed 91. Like I said, champ, he was very bouncy, looked very explosive. The odds shifted in that first round. That was a split decision.
Yeah.
But and even to the second after, they had Rodriguez as an underdog.
Plus, yeah, the first round, you give it to Morono, right? He looked fast, he looked crisp, he kind of was unpredictable, kind of like how we mentioned he's an unpredictable fighter. And Daniel Rodriguez took him a minute. He even said it in his post-fight interview that it took him a minute to figure out Morono because he throws these random punches, these random combinations. And once he kind of figured it out, he was able to put the pressure and move forward and kind of land more significant strikes. So, yeah, I agree with the decision. It is a split decision. I do give round one to Morono, but Daniel Rodriguez put the brakes on him in the second and third round. I just don't get why he doesn't utilize his grappling. It's still, I'm questioning it to this day.
Probably felt invincible in that first round because he did look good, but we talked about it at the beginning with Price. Those two have not looked like the same fighter, right? And that's why I told you my only criteria was I went back to that fight and I analyzed how they did, and it wasn't good, champ. And shout out to him. I think Morono needs to evaluate, his priorities. Why didn't he use the jiu-jitsu? Was there an injury? He only wanted to throw overhand rights, hooks, leaning hooks. And, shout out to Daniel. He was jabbing to the body. He was, he was mixing it up. He was the better martial artist that night.
Yeah, he was. I agree. Moving on here, we had a lightweight bout. Grant Dawson, the favorite at a -425 up against Rafa Garcia, the underdog at a +330. Dawson pulled out the victory via KO in the second round. I think, it was what we predicted, right? Dawson looked good. His striking got a little bit better, right? I kind of, going into the fight, I kind of stated that he's just going to take him down. He's going to utilize his wrestling. But one of the things he did that I like seeing from him was he incorporated his striking combinations prior to shooting for the takedown. He kind of set up his takedowns that way. And he looked good. It was a dominant performance. Yeah. I want to see who they give him next. You think they give him somebody in the top 15, top 10?
Yeah, he needs to fight somebody in the top 15. He looked great. Again, he dominant. He knew he was going to take him down, but it was just a matter of when. And he just got it down. Dominated the first two rounds. Good ground game in the second. He secured a dominant position, finished Garcia relentlessly with ground and pound, forcing the stoppage. So this kid's good. I think he's an American top team as well, so he is developing. Shout out to him for the post fight interview about the dumper, the wife and the dump truck, and the boys really love that. Yeah, give him a top 15. I think he's ready.
Yeah, I think he is ready as well, and I want to see him develop more of the striking game and see how versatile and how much of a threat he can be in the lightweight division. Now, moving on here, we had a welterweight bout. Chidi Jokwani, the favorite, up against the underdog, Jared Gooden. This fight was pretty much what we predicted, right? We stated that if he's able to, I stated that is if he's able to wither the initial storm and the forward pressure of Gooden in the first round, he's gonna pull out a decision win, right? because Gooden likes to start fast, like start hard. And Gooden's game plan didn't work in his favor. He shot for 8 takedowns, I believe, and he was only successful in 2 of them. But he was outstriked 105 significant strikes to 20. And one of the things I told you as the fight was happening was Chidi's frame and his body's good. Like, he looks good for the welterweight division. He has a nice, like, he just looks massive in comparison to Gooden. What did you think of his performance? What did you think of the fight?
I think let's start with the clinch. Last weekend, Mario Bautista had an issue with Jose Aldo about holding your opponent, on the cage. Look at the work Chidi did. Chidi did a masterful performance when it came to his. That's what you call it, an active clinch. And I think when it comes to Muay Thai, dominate black belt. Wow, that's how people need to be as active. You're gonna hold somebody in the cage, knee, elbow, drag them, do something. It was phenomenal. For a second, I thought it was a middleweight because how much bigger he looked. The reality is, Gooden did not make weight. Gooden forfeited 20% of his purse. I think I'm going to make the assumption, champ, that he did it on purpose so he could come a little bit heavier. So those overhand strikes, because Gooden came out with a flat, off the bat, he came out striking. But I think Champ Gooden was content being on the clinch. I don't know why. And Chidi was just dominating him, brother. Ranges was good. Again, another situation of somebody of another fighter that just wanted to take you down and wanted to rely on that overhand. Again, this is martial art. We need to combine all of them. Shout out to Chidi. I really hope it will be a great fight. Give him Gilbert Burns. That'd be a good fight.
Or Jared, give him Jared or Gilbert, give him one of them. Feed him, whichever one you want. Feed him.
I know. In middleweight, he's man. He's just looked so good at welterweight. My concern is the chin, but it's the pass. But again, we'll see how he continues to kind of go and dominate that division and go from there.
Yeah. So we both picked Chidi to win that fight, and we were both correct.
I think you had it at a yellow. I had it at a low. His chin. That was my only concern. His chin.
Next up, we have our co-main event middleweight bout. Brad Tavares up against the Iron Turtle Jun Young Park, the favorite at a -185. Park won via split decision. You and I were on both opposing ends here. You went for Park, whereas I went for Tavares based on his experience, based on his, his accolades. I think in the level of competition that he's fought, I do agree with the split decision. I do give the first round to Tavares. He kind of, initially came out, he knocked him down. He wasn't able to follow up and finish him. And then Jun Young Park just kind of he was able to take him down, right? I think one of the things I stated in the pre-fight analysis was Brad Tavares has like over 80% takedown defense. I don't think Park is going to be able to take him down. And I think he took him down. Let me look at the stats here. I want to say 2 times. Yeah, he took him down 2 times out of his 6 attempts, and he was able to establish the control. And I think that's what ultimately won him the fight. And one of the things I didn't like seeing from Tavares was he let Park pressure him. He was kind of backing, circling the octagon, whereas when the judges look at these kind of fights, they look to see who's the forward movement aggressor, right? And Park was kind of just chasing him down, making him move, kind of putting the pressure on him. And I would have liked to see Tavares kind of meet him in the center of the octagon and kind of exchange that way and put the pressure on him instead of fighting backwards. So Park won via split decision. I was incorrect, whereas you were correct. How did you see the fight?
I was scared the first round. That double jab cross to overhand dropped him. And I was like, is this really what we're going to go for tonight? Especially at a +195 Tavares, right? And it was just that, champ. I mean, look, the reality is Tavares was in tough 11 in the Chuck Liddell, Tito Ortiz season. That was over a decade ago. That was like probably 13, 14 years ago. No, more than that. 13 years ago. Going into this fight, it was an age thing. It was something that, like, I understand he's still competitive, but he's facing somebody that has an iron chin. Like this guy, bro, is I don't know when his chin's good. This guy was just getting punched, but he could withstand it. And then, like you said, the forward pressure, the combinations, the calf kicks, bro. He was throwing everything, and it was a great display of martial arts. I liked his post fight speech. It was like, "Yo, give me a top 15 or give me a money fight." I was like,
They all want the money fight, man.
"Yo, no one
Where's
is
the
like."
money?
Yeah, I don't agree that it was a. I don't think it was a split decision. I think it was a unanimous decision. I think you give the first round to Tavares, then you give the 2 rounds to Park. Park did amazing. After the second round, Park just took over.
Rounding off our card here is the main event flyweight bout. Brandon Royval, number 1, the underdog at a plus 210 going into the fight, up against Tatsuro Taira, ranked number 5, the favorite at a minus 258. Now, the odds were shifting the night prior to the fight. I think at the highest it got to, Taira was like a minus 305. And, Royval was a plus 280 at one point, I believe, if I remember that correctly. Uh, I I think this fight went as I expected it to go, right? I stated in the pre-fight analysis that Brandon Royval has the ability to scramble on the ground, right? And even though Tyra got a lot of control time, he was unsuccessful in, securing that submission that he was looking for. He has a nasty body triangle lock. Like he just like the pressure he applies, it's intense. But they were scrambling on the ground. I think Brandon Royval is striking. He outstriked him. I had him winning the first round, Tyra winning the second. Third was Royval. He looked immediately like Tyra looked so gassed in the third round. Like I don't know what happened. That man took a sensu bean in between the rounds because he came back in the fourth round and looked great. Right? He took him down and he controlled him again. And in the fifth round, Royval listened to his coaches. Right? They told him, "Don't give him your back." And what happened? Tyra attempted to take him down. He put his back to the mat and was able to get up again and stand up and strike him for the remainder of the fight, right? And then what won him the fight, I think, was when he took him down that last minute. When he took him down the last minute, he had the control. I think that's what run him the round and ultimately won him the fight. I know we have the scorecards here. I'll share your screen. What did you think? What did you think of Tyra's performance? I think it's important for a young fighter like him, a young contender, maybe a future champ, to experience a loss like this early in his career, right?
I mean, look, it was two headed to the last round. It was a very close fight.
Mm-hmm.
Um, we have the scorecards here. Like I gotta say, the first round was Royval. Royval had excellent striking, very pure striking. One of the things that I mentioned, I was scared to see how Tyra was going to deal with that cardio because, man, Royval outpaced Moreno. And my question was, how the hell did he outpace Moreno? Is it a cardio issue? Like, is it an injury issue on Moreno's side or what? He did the same thing to Tyra. I thought, I knew Tyra was going to have a little bit of issues because he's never dealt with that style. The other issue, champ, is that they were teammates, so they kind of know each other's points. But the reality is, this was a striker versus grapplers match. Royval did very good. Tyra did try to kind of feel him out, strike a little bit, and he was getting clipped, and it was very significant. You can kind of see off the bat, his face change, the color change. He was, but on that second round, champ, and again, we go back to the scorecards, right? Two judges gave it to Royval. One of them gave it to Taira. I don't know how you give it to Taira,
Yeah, I
honestly.
don't know how you give him the first round. It's Sal questionable.
Yeah, it's very questionable. And you can see here, um, you know, even the odds shifted. The odds shifted from a plus 245 to a plus 110. And what that means is that, Royval took it. Let's be honest with you, right? Even the striking department, because there was no takedown. So how does and we talk about rounds, but how does Tyra take that round? You see, that's where I don't agree. Where I am just like, yeah, I don't. This is the reason why it was a split decision.
Mm-hmm.
Then we go into the second round, and this is where Tyra got the job done when it comes to his takedown. Took him down, and it was quick, like you said. It was body triangle control, and And watching that fight again, what happens to the odds after that? It goes up because that aura of invincibility goes up. And it was amazing. It was beautiful display, champ. Quick, effective, efficient, plus 230 strikes, and you could even see it there. Barely nothing landed because of the control. So that round, you got to give it to Taira. So it's 1-1 head into the third. Then in the third, they both gave it to Brandon Royval. This was an interesting one. I mean, look, I'm going to be honest with you. Royval did win this round. It was great. Like the striking was there. You could even see it here. 56 out of 78 in that round. He clipped him. And if I'm not mistaken, I think there was a kind of a takedown landed. Now I don't remember, but probably was the fourth. But yeah, it was great. Even like Royval defended pretty good as well. Very excited about it. That wasn't an issue. The third round was an issue. Heading into the fourth, this was a Taira round. I think that's when Taira, put him down, controlled him. That's when, this is why I was saying this was a 2-2 headed into the kind of the fourth round, champ. And again, the Taira rounds, you could see it here. Round 2 and round 4, right? He just knew to fly. But when Taira would take him down, it was very intriguing because it looked at points he was going to submit him. But, Royval stood there. And, one of the things that, people are saying, oh, Pantoja is, how can Royval deal with Pantoja if Taira did that? Like, yeah, but you saw him defend and you saw him get good and get up. And even in the fifth round, which we're headed to right now, where, that fight, they were giving it to Taira. They were like, Taira's winning this. Taira was a minus 275 heading into the fifth round. And, shout out to Royval. He got it done. He dominated, striking, the pace. That's when he upped up the cardio. I think he went for a takedown. And, it was beautiful, champ. I think it was phenomenal.
That fifth round, I believe, won him the fight. He was able to defend the takedown. Like you mentioned in the analysis there, he brought it back to the center of the octagon. In the last minute, he secured the takedown. He secured the takedown and he went for the go back to the tweet, please. Yeah, right there. He tries to secure submission while pressuring Taira on the ground, landing punches. The fight comes to an end. I think that last minute won him the fight, in my opinion. He looked good in the fifth round.
Yeah, and again, like it was a very impressive victory. Again, we look at the strikes, right? And the strikes should tell a tale. He won the fifth. It was the first one that could have cost the first. Like, and this is why it's so crazy. That judge Sal D'Amato. What's the criteria of this? Like, why did Taira win? Like, I'll be honest with you. I was going for Taira. If you look at this at the betting, I thought Taira did good. It was just that fourth round. He needs more experience. He needs.
That's one of the things we stated too. He hasn't fought this level of competition, and he hasn't gone 5 rounds in the UFC. And I think this is a good experience for him. Now, next time they give him a 5-round fight, I think he's going to come in way more prepared. His cardio is going to get better. He's going to know how to manage his gas tank, right? And then win the later rounds. I think that's one of the things that Royval did perfectly in his game plan. He knew that the fight was 2-2, and he went into the fifth round. And that's what separates, the champions from the contenders, right? Is you go into these championship rounds winning the later rounds.
Yeah, and I mean, look, maybe if he picks it up on that first round and tries to take him down instead of striking with him, maybe he would have edged out the victory. Because again, like, there's a reason why, like, he went for the kill on the second and the fourth. Yeah, I mean, look, this kid, expectation-wise, when it comes to Royval, I think he is the number one contender. They announced Pantoja's fighting, Akara. Please remind me his name. Akara, if I'm not mistaken. The former flyweight champion from Ryzen, from Japan. And it was cool because if Taira would have won and then let's say for example, Pantoja loses the belt, you would have had a Japanese, face off, and that
Yeah, Kaya Sakura.
and that's why a lot of us was like, oh, Noche de Japón, and you could do a pride theme, and you could do all this different stuff. What's the name of the fighter, champ? Sorry.
Kaya Sakura.
Yeah, Kaya Sakura. So if I'm not mistaken, Royval turned down that fight. So that fight was offered to Brandon Royval, and he turned it down. Then hence he ends up getting this fight. So what they ended up doing was they ended up giving Pantoja that guy, right? Kind of like a former champion from a different, organization.
Mm-hmm.
Um, what I'm trying to get at, Royval is in a very interesting position because he's off the bat. He's like, listen, I'm gonna fight. I'll fight the two guys fighting in Edmonton in a couple of weeks. What, are you gonna fight Moreno again? That makes no sense. You just beat him in February.
I think
Um,
didn't he say his next fight is the championship? He's not going to fight anybody else. I
kind
thought
of
he said
he said that, but then he said, I didn't think he was just hyped up. I just think I'll fight anybody. But he did mention those two guys, if I'm not mistaken. He mentioned those two guys, and I'm like, what? Like Albasi, it makes sense if Albasi wins because you already beat Moreno. But listen, he's the number one contender. He's with a new team. He's looked very good. Again, one of the things this morning, and is on Twitter, the boys were bashing Royval because they're like, yeah, he's great, but he's never going to become champion.
that. Hmm.
Fighters evolve, fighters learn. Like, Pantoja's been in the UFC for a while now. Let's listen. Let's not get that twisted. He's had a lot of up and downs in his careers, and these fights only make him better. Royval's only been there for a short period of time, less champ, and he's only getting better. So, you know, I hope these next couple of months he trains with Taira. He needs a little bit more wrestling, a little bit more grappling to go up against Pantoja if Pantoja wins in December.
There we have it. Our post UFC Fight Night Royval versus Taira reaction and analysis. We did pretty good. 73% success rate altogether. Not too bad, not too shabby. If you looked at our results last card for UFC 307, we had a 92% success rate for myself, and I believe a 62% success rate for my man over here, equaling 75% success rate altogether. So we're doing pretty good. I feel like we're kind of hitting that benchmark. We're like in the 72, 75% success rate when it comes to picking these fights. We're going to continue to keep the ball rolling, continue to keep the ball moving. Make sure you guys follow us, like, subscribe, support the X account. We are building that. We are building the community over there. Follow us, tap in with us. Floor price guy, you have any parting words?
Yeah, I mean, look, there was a great card. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it actually a little bit too much. I gotta say, I personally went Degen. I won a couple of different. I put a parlay in. It was like a plus 2,000, and it was 6 fights. It was Carpenter, Haddon, Gorimbo, Temerov, Rodriguez, Dawson, and Chitty. So if I'm not mistaken, that's actually seven. Seven of those, and that's very degen. But I was feeling all those fighters. I had a couple of more parlays, but they ended up going down because of Pierce. So,
Yeah.
I mean, it is what it is. It's a great night. Bet responsibly if you're going to degen.
Mhm.
But yeah, champ, looking forward to for the next.
Yeah, and then a couple takeaways for me. The big wins were Sabatini and Royval for myself, two underdogs that pulled out the win. I did have a couple of parlays. I think one of the big parlays that I didn't hit on was I had Tavares as the round. It was like a plus 3,000 with Tavares and Sabatini. I did Sabatini straight and I added him in a parlay, and that one didn't hit, but for the most part, we still came up on top, right?
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, those are the picks. Those are our success rates. Follow us, like, comment. Let us know if you agree. Let us know if you disagree. We're open to all opinions. We won't crash out on you. Maybe we will. Maybe just a little bit. We might punk you a little bit. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. It's all love. But we will be back next week breaking down UFC Fight Night Pereira versus Hernandez. Opinions, picks, analysis, breakdowns. And we'll have a recap. And after that, we have the banger of a card that is UFC 308, Topuria versus Holloway. Can't wait for that one. That one's going to be a good card. It's going to be a banger of a main event. The whole card in its entirety is going to be great. Can't wait for that one. We'll see y'all on the next one. Peace out.